When my boyfriend dumped me, the last person I expected to show up at my apartment was his older brother. Let me explain. Jared and I had been together for almost 2 years. We met in college, fell hard, moved in together a year later, and then, well, everything just started to unravel. He got distant, I got frustrated, and somewhere between my clinginess and his emotional constipation, we just stopped working. The breakup wasn't loud. No yelling, no thrown dishes, just quiet, cold. He packed a bag, said he'd crash with friends for a while, and then he was gone. And for 3 days, it was just silence. No texts, no closure. Just me, binge-watching garbage TV, eating cereal out of the box, and trying not to cry every time I saw his toothbrush still in the holder. Then, on the 4th day, there was a knock at the door. I didn't bother to put on real clothes. I was in sweatpants and a hoodie, hair unwashed, looking every bit the image of a recently dumped guy wallowing in his own misery. I opened the door, expecting maybe a neighbor or a package, or possibly even Jared, ready to talk. But no, it was Drew, Jared's older brother. Tall, broad-shouldered, and about as emotionally unreadable as a brick wall. He and Jared were nothing alike. Jared was delicate, artsy, soft-spoken. Drew was all sarcasm and stubble and flannel shirts. We'd met a few times over the years. Holidays, birthdays, the occasional awkward group hang, but we never got close. So seeing him there, standing in my doorway with one hand stuffed into his jeans pocket and a grocery bag in the other, was confusing. "Hey," he said. I blinked. "Hey." I brought food. He lifted the bag slightly like that explained everything. I stepped aside, letting him in because, honestly, I didn't know what else to do. My apartment looked like a crime scene where the victim had been self-pity and the weapon was Netflix. He walked straight to the kitchen, set the bag down, and started unpacking. I said. "You know Jared's not here, right?" Drew didn't look up. "Yeah, I know." "Then why are you here?" He pulled out a container of soup, placed it on the counter, and finally met my eyes. "Because you looked like shit the last time I saw you. And someone should make sure you're eating." I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the first thing that popped into my head. "Did Jared send you?" Drew's jaw tightened. No, silence stretched between us. Not awkward, exactly, just full. I leaned against the wall. "So you just decided to show up?" He shrugged. "I was in the neighborhood. You live 30 minutes away." 35, he corrected. Traffic was light. I let out a quiet laugh. I couldn't help it. He was so deadpan, so weirdly calm in a situation that was anything but. He heated the soup, handed me a bowl, and sat across from me at the tiny kitchen table like we'd done this 100 times before. And we didn't talk about Jared. Not once. Instead, we talked about his job, construction project manager. He told me about the nightmare client he was dealing with, and how the guy insisted on having marble imported from Italy for a condo he wasn't even planning to live in. I told him about my job at the nonprofit, and how our office coffee machine had finally died, causing a near riot. And it was weirdly nice. After dinner, I walked him to the door, unsure how to end whatever this was. "Thanks," I said, "for the food, and, the company." Drew nodded, shoving his hands in his jacket pockets. "Don't let Jared make you feel like shit, okay?" I nodded, unsure what else to say. Then, before I could second guess it, I asked, "You want to come by again sometime?" He hesitated for half a second. Then, "Yeah, I do." And just like that, he was gone. I stood there in the hallway long after he'd left, holding an empty bowl, wondering what the hell just happened. After Drew left that night, I half expected it to be a one-time thing. Something he did out of obligation. Maybe a weird sense of duty to the ex-boyfriend of his emotionally unavailable little brother. I figured I wouldn't hear from him again. But the next evening, he texted me. "Drew, you eat yet?" I stared at the message for longer than I care to admit. My thumb hovered over the keyboard while my brain tried to catch up. Me. Not yet. Why? Drew. Because I'm bringing Thai. Hope you like spicy. An hour later, he was back. This time with 2 steaming takeout containers and that same unreadable expression that somehow made my apartment feel less empty. We ate on the couch this time. The distance between us smaller. The conversation looser. I didn't realize how much I needed company until he was there again, filling the silence in his quiet, steady way. "Any word from Jared?" he asked once, casually. "Nope," I said. "And honestly, I don't really want one." He nodded, like that made sense. Like it wasn't strange for his brother's ex to be confiding in him. Like the fact that he was here, again, wasn't strange at all. We didn't talk about feelings or heartbreak. Drew didn't do emotional deep dives, but he listened. Really listened. And there was something in the way he sat there, legs stretched out in front of him, arms resting along the back of my worn couch, that made me feel more okay than I had in days. That week, he came by 2 more times. By the 4th visit, he let himself in with the spare key I had stashed under the doormat. "You're gonna have to stop feeding me," I said, half joking, as he handed me a container of leftovers from his mom. "You don't eat when you're sad," he said. "I've noticed." "You've noticed?" Drew gave me a look, the kind that was hard to hold for too long. "I notice things." That shut me up. The 5th time he came over, I told him to stay the night. It wasn't a dramatic thing. It was late, and he looked tired, and I had an extra blanket and a lumpy couch that I warned him about. He stretched out, kicked off his boots, and flipped through Netflix like this was his place too. I watched him from the kitchen, and something about the sight made my chest ache in a way I couldn't quite explain. He didn't try anything, didn't say anything weird, but when I passed by to turn off the lights, he reached out and caught my wrist. "Hey," he said, his voice quiet. I looked down at him. "Yeah? You're doing okay?" It wasn't a question. It wasn't even really a statement. It was reassurance. And for the first time in weeks, I actually believed it. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the sound of his breathing from the living room. Steady, solid, real. He was just supposed to be Jared's brother. But somehow, he'd taken the other side of my bed, even if he wasn't physically there yet. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. For a moment, I forgot everything. The breakup, the weird limbo I'd been living in. The apartment felt warm, like someone had turned the world back on. I padded into the kitchen, still in boxers and an old hoodie, and found Drew already there, barefoot, leaning against the counter, scrolling on his phone like he belonged. "You're up," he said without looking. "You made coffee," I replied, still groggy. He glanced at me, one corner of his mouth tilting up. "It's the least I could do, considering your couch tried to kill me." I snorted. "Told you it was cursed." He poured me a mug and slid it across the counter. "Then maybe next time I'll take the bed." I looked up. He didn't smile when he said it, didn't wink, just stared at me with those steady, too perceptive eyes, like he was testing the ground with every word. "Next time?" I asked. He shrugged. "Unless you're kicking me out." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I sipped my coffee, pretending I didn't feel the question hanging heavy between us. Because the truth was, I didn't want him to leave, but I also didn't know what we were doing. That night, he came over again, and this time, when the movie ended and I started to stand to clean up, Drew didn't head for the couch. He just looked at me. And I knew. There wasn't a single move made, no grand gesture, just a shift in the air, that quiet, electric pause before someone crosses a line they can't uncross. "I should probably crash," he said, voice low. "Yeah," I replied, my eyes on his. "You can take the bed tonight." That was it, that's all I said. But he heard it. He heard everything I didn't say in those 7 words. I turned and walked to my room without looking back, heart thudding so hard it echoed in my ears. I didn't know if he'd follow. Part of me wasn't even sure I wanted him to. But when I sat on the edge of the bed, pulling my hoodie over my head, I heard his footsteps behind me. He stopped at the doorway. I didn't turn. "You sure?" he asked. I nodded, still not looking. The mattress dipped beside me a second later. We didn't touch, not at first. We lay there side by side, the kind of silence that isn't awkward, just full. I could hear him breathing, slow, even, calm. I wasn't. Then his hand brushed against mine under the blanket. Barely a graze, but deliberate, and for some reason, that one simple touch felt more intimate than anything I'd had with Jared in months. "You're not like him," I said quietly, surprising even myself. "I know," Drew said. I rolled onto my side facing him. Our knees touched. His face was so close now, shadowed by the dim light leaking through the blinds, jaw clenched, eyes searching mine. "Why are you here?" I whispered. He didn't answer right away, just stared at me, his brow tight like he was trying to hold something back. Then, "Because I couldn't stand the idea of you going through this alone." His voice cracked slightly, just enough for me to feel it in my chest. I didn't know who moved first. Maybe it was him, maybe it was me, but suddenly his hand was on my cheek, rough and warm and careful, and his lips were on mine. No fireworks, no music swelling in the background, just the soft press of his mouth, hesitant but certain, real. And everything inside me, every doubt, every question, just quieted. I kissed him back. And in that moment, nothing about it felt wrong. We didn't rush it. That first kiss was slow, like we were both trying to make sure it was really happening. Like either of us could back out if we wanted, but neither of us did. I pulled back first, heart thudding like a drum in my chest. Are we making a mistake? Drew didn't look away. His brow was still drawn tight, but his voice was steady. "I don't know." It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was honest, so I nodded. "Okay." And we stayed like that, close, breathing the same air, until one of us shifted. I think it was me who leaned forward again, mouth brushing against his, because suddenly, I didn't care if it was a mistake. Not tonight. Not when the weight of every shitty thing I'd been holding in for weeks started to crack under the warmth of his hands. We didn't sleep together that night. Not in that way, but he stayed in my bed, fully clothed, blanket pulled up over both of us, his arm eventually winding around my middle, like it had always belonged there. We didn't talk much after that, but just before I drifted off, I felt him press his lips to the back of my neck. Soft, almost like an apology. Or a promise. I woke up early the next morning to sunlight pouring in through the window. For a second, I panicked, unsure of what version of reality I'd find when I turned over. But Drew was still there. One arm tucked under his head, the other loosely draped over my waist, breathing deep, completely knocked out. The scruff on his jaw was a little longer, catching the light in a way that made my stomach flutter. He looked peaceful, and that scared the hell out of me. Because for the first time in a long time, I did too. I quietly got up, careful not to wake him, and went to the kitchen. My brain was already spiraling with questions I wasn't ready to answer. What did this mean? Was this real? Would it last? And what the hell would Jared say if he ever found out? I stared at the coffee machine like it owed me answers. 15 minutes later, I heard footsteps. Drew appeared in the doorway, hair messy, t-shirt wrinkled, looking entirely too good for someone who just slept on their side all night. He leaned against the frame. "Morning." "Hey," I said, my voice a little hoarse. He crossed the room slowly, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to. When he got close enough, he brushed a knuckle under my chin, making me look at him. "I'm not gonna pretend I know what happens next," he said. "But I'm not gonna pretend last night didn't happen either." My chest tightened. "You're Jared's brother." "I know. He left me less than a week ago." "I know that too. And now, we're just doing this?" He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "I think I've wanted to do this since long before he left you." That stopped me. He didn't look away, didn't flinch, just said it like it was truth he'd been carrying around for months, maybe longer. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. I just stepped closer and leaned into him, my forehead resting against his chest, and let the weight of it all settle between us. The grief, the guilt, the weird, unexpected hope. He wrapped his arms around me, firm and steady, and held on like he meant it, like he wasn't planning on going anywhere. For the next few days, we didn't talk about what we were doing. Drew kept coming over, sometimes with takeout, sometimes with groceries, once with a six-pack and a very serious expression that vanished the moment I laughed at how earnestly he asked if I liked craft beer. We didn't label it, we didn't sit down and define terms. But he slept in my bed every night. He always kissed me like he was grounding himself, like I was something steady. And the way he looked at me, soft, full of quiet want, I couldn't deny that this was more than comfort or confusion. It felt good. Too good. And that's what started to scare me. Because eventually, someone was going to notice. We weren't exactly discreet, we didn't go out together, but he left clothes at my place, he cooked shirtless, he brushed his teeth with one of my extra toothbrushes, and he touched me when he passed behind me. Light brushes to the back, a palm to the waist, fingers trailing across the kitchen counter like he couldn't help it. It wasn't just physical, it was how he started asking questions about my day before I even sat down. How he remembered the little things, like how I always needed 2 ice cubes in my coffee, or that I hated wet socks more than anything in the world. It was intimate in the way things get when someone chooses to stay. Not out of pity, not out of guilt, but because they want to. And that terrified me. One night, about a week into whatever this was, I was brushing my teeth, standing at the sink in boxers and a t-shirt, and I saw him in the mirror, just watching me from the bed. He didn't say anything, just sat there, his elbow resting on one raised knee, face unreadable. "What?" I asked around my toothbrush. "You're really bad at hiding how much you like me," he said. I nearly choked on my toothpaste. "Excuse me?" Drew grinned and shrugged, shameless. "I'm just saying, you light up like a Christmas tree every time I walk in the door." "I do not." "Okay," he said, standing up and walking over to me slowly. "So if I kiss you right now, you're not going to smile like an idiot?" I tried to hold my expression, but the smirk broke through before he even touched me. "See?" he murmured, mouth barely a breath away. "Told you." The kiss that followed was slow, warm, the kind that felt like it didn't need to lead to anything else. And in that moment, I didn't care what Jared would think. I didn't care how complicated it was. Because Drew kissed me like I was something worth holding on to. But the world outside our apartment didn't stop, and neither did Jared. The next afternoon, while Drew was still at work, I got a text. "Jared, I left a few things at your place. Mind if I swing by tomorrow?" I stared at the message for what felt like an hour. Tomorrow. He was coming here, to this space that had already shifted into something new. I replied, short and neutral. Me. "Yeah, that's fine." But I knew it wasn't fine. Not really. Drew came by later that night like he always did, but I was quieter, restless. He picked up on it immediately. "What's going on?" he asked, setting his keys on the counter. "Jared's coming by tomorrow." Drew's face didn't change, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. "You okay with that?" he asked. "I don't know." He stepped closer, put a hand on my waist. "Want me to be here?" I shook my head. "No, I need to do this alone." He nodded, but he didn't look away. His thumb rubbed slow circles against my hip. "You sure?" I hesitated. "Yeah." But when I went to bed that night, he still curled up beside me, like always. And even though neither of us said it out loud, we both knew tomorrow might change everything. The morning Jared was supposed to come by, I woke up feeling like my stomach had been replaced with a brick. Drew was still asleep beside me, arm flung across my waist like it belonged there. I watched him for a moment, his face relaxed, his chest rising and falling slowly, and for a second I let myself pretend this was normal, that I wouldn't have to face what was coming. But reality was knocking, literally. At 10:02, there was a knock on the door. Drew had already left by then. He kissed me softly at the front door around 7:30, told me to call if I needed him, then walked out without waiting for me to say anything back. Like he trusted me to do this the way I needed to. Like he knew I would. I opened the door to find Jared standing there with a small duffel bag over one shoulder. He looked the same. A little tired, maybe, but the same. "Hey," he said, eyes scanning me quickly. "You look better than I expected." "Yeah," I said, stepping aside. "Come in." He did, and immediately his eyes landed on the couch. The blanket Drew had used last week was still tossed over the arm. The extra toothbrush sat in the bathroom cup. And my place, our place, smelled like Drew's cologne. He didn't say anything, but I saw his jaw tighten. "I just need a few things from the closet," he said. I nodded. "Go ahead." I stood by the kitchen counter while he went into the bedroom. My fingers tapped against the marble without thinking. My heart felt like it was pacing inside my chest. I could hear drawers opening, the closet door sliding. Then, nothing. A minute later, Jared reappeared with the bag a little heavier. But he didn't leave. Instead, he stood across from me, eyes narrowed just slightly. "So, you and Drew?" There it was. I blinked. "What? You heard me." I didn't say anything. Jared exhaled, ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I don't care if you've moved on. We're done. That's fine. My brother? Seriously?" "He's not just your brother," I said. "He's his own person, and I'm your ex," Jared shot back. "Yeah," I said, a little firmer now. "You are, and you left. You didn't check in. You didn't even text for 3 days. You just disappeared." He flinched at that, but he didn't deny it. "I needed space," he muttered. "So did I said, and Drew gave it to me until I didn't need it anymore." Silence. He set the bag down, rubbed the back of his neck, then said, "Is it serious?" I didn't answer right away, just looked at him. "It's not a rebound," I said finally, "if that's what you're asking." He nodded slowly, picked up the bag again. "Okay," he said. "Okay." I didn't stop him when he turned to leave. I didn't ask him to stay, or apologize, or pretend this wasn't complicated. Because it was. But not in the way I used to think. As soon as the door clicked shut behind him, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. And 2 hours later, Drew was back. He stepped inside, eyes scanning my face before saying a word. "How'd it go?" I walked toward him, rested my forehead against his chest. "It's over," I said. "Really over." Drew's arms came around me like second nature. "Okay," he said quietly. "So now what?" I looked up at him. "Now, we stop pretending this is temporary." He didn't smile, didn't gloat. Just leaned down and kissed me like he meant it. Like maybe, for the first time in a long time, we both knew exactly what we were doing. We didn't define anything right away. There weren't labels or dramatic confessions. Just more nights together, more mornings where I woke up with his breath on the back of my neck, and more ordinary moments that somehow didn't feel ordinary anymore. It was different with Drew. There was no constant wondering, no second guessing myself, no walking on eggshells like I used to with Jared, trying to be the right kind of boyfriend. Easygoing, not too emotional, just supportive enough, but never too much. Drew didn't need me to shrink myself. If anything, he wanted more. More honesty, more vulnerability, more of me, even when I didn't know how to give it. I remember one night, maybe 2 weeks after Jared picked up his things, I came home from a long day at work, feeling like I'd been wrung out emotionally and tossed into traffic. I was moody, quiet, barely made it through dinner. Instead of pulling away, Drew did the opposite. He slid closer on the couch, his hand resting on my thigh, and said, "You don't have to talk if you don't want to, but I'm here." And that was it. No pressure, no passive-aggressive silence. Just presence. I leaned into him, let myself exhale against his chest, and for the first time, I realized how safe it felt to be around someone who actually saw me, who wasn't asking me to be better, or stronger, or less complicated. Just me. It was maybe a month after all of it. After Jared, After the kiss, after the first night Drew didn't sleep on the couch, when he officially stopped bringing an overnight bag. His clothes were just there. His toothbrush was no longer extra. He started keeping oat milk in the fridge and cursing when I forgot to restock it. We were still careful around the edges. I didn't post anything. He didn't talk to Jared about us. Not yet. But our world had started to settle. Quietly, almost without realizing it. We'd built something that felt solid. One Saturday morning, we were in the kitchen, both still in boxers and t-shirts. Me making eggs, Drew flipping pancakes with a seriousness that made me laugh. "You're really committed to this breakfast," I said. "I have to compensate for being emotionally stunted somehow," he deadpanned. I snorted. "You? Stunted? Never." He turned to look at me, flipping the last pancake onto the plate, then leaned against the counter. For a second, he just watched me, not saying anything. Then, "You know this is real for me, right?" I froze, spatula in hand. "What?" "This," he said, gesturing between us. "You. Us. It's not casual." My throat tightened. I set the spatula down slowly. "I know," I said. "It's real for me too." We didn't need to say more. Not right then. He stepped closer, kissed my temple, and stole the last pancake off my plate like a jerk. And I let him. Because he wasn't Jared. He wasn't a replacement. He wasn't some impulsive rebound. He was Drew. Stubborn, quiet, fiercely loyal Drew, who walked into my apartment with a bag of soup and ended up stealing my heart when I wasn't looking. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next.